So, just with a quick introduction for everyone who is listening to this anywhere around the world, it's an honor to be back with you. Liam Hartry here. This is episode 506 of the Simply Inspired podcast. And today I am joined by a very special guest, Brihat Das. Now, hopefully, I'm saying that the right way, but if I'm murdering that name, I do apologize. And today's guest, everyone, is a very, very inspirational figure within the International Society of Krishna Consciousness or the Hare Krishna movement. And he is a person who has a positive impact on the lives of many people as a monk and a teacher, as I'm going to say, a little bit of a social media influencer because Brihat has a very good way of putting the material out there to bring people closer to Krishna and closer to God and to live a healthy and more fulfilling lifestyle. And although we will clarify those definitions as we move forward, suffice to say, this is a man who is really leading by example. And I'm very honored to be doing this talk today and to welcome Rihat to the show because he is one of the front runners in this movement, a young guy. I don't know how old you are, we'll find out shortly. But in other words, part of the new generation, bringing people closer to God. And today, the purpose of this talk isn't just to hear about this amazing person and his life story. It is also fundamentally about you, the viewers and listeners, and the tips and techniques and inspiration and hope, relatability on the spiritual path, all of these kinds of things that you can take away and learn from and practically apply in your life wherever you are currently at on the spiritual path, whether you're just beginning, whether you're further down the road, maybe a little bit lost and confused, any point it is, there will be something in here for you. Let's put it that way. So, Rehat, I will bow as best I can, considering I'm holding the phone, because I was hoping to do this on the PC, but due to the little problems, I've just set it up on here. So my attempt at a bow is I can do there. And Hare Krishna to you. It is a pleasure to be here. And as I've already said, thank you so much for taking time out of your morning.
It's my pleasure, Liam. Very honored to be here. I have this talk with you.
Likewise, very honored as well. And I think that we can start with a little bit about your story. Now, as I've already mentioned, this is one part of the talk because your spiritual insights and your spiritual lessons and your lifestyle, all of these things will be relevant in the time that we have. But I also have to consider that for anyone hearing this for the first time, they may be curious about how you became involved with all of this and why you've made the decision to live as you do as a monk. And I must admit, I'm fascinated to hear that story because I see your videos coming through. And as I mentioned before we were recording, the humorous ones, the serious ones, you have a great way of sharing knowledge. But something would have started you on the path to want to learn all of those things. So, may we start with that topic, please, as to where the spiritual search, if you like, began for you? Thank you.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And before I begin, I'll just say one Sanskrit prayer, which I always do, because on my own, I don't feel capable to speak something meaningful. But I believe if I act as an instrument for the will of my teachers, and especially the will of the Supreme, then I can speak something that will touch the hearts of uh, at least a few out there, hopefully many. So that prayer goes like this. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. It's essentially a prayer of gratitude and seeking blessings. So, Liam, my spiritual quest arose out of the mud of a material life. there's the lotus analogy, and if there's anything beautiful about my life now, please know that it started in a low place, I can say, a contaminated place, and it's inspiring, I think, for people out there who may hear this and feel that they're in a difficult place in life to recognize that it is possible to bloom even from a unfavorable seeming situation. So what happened for me is that I was just about to graduate college and I had no idea what to do with my life. No path in life really seemed interesting, whether this career, that career, the idea of marriage, the whole traditional American life appeared to me undesirable because I didn't see people who were happy living in that way. And yet I didn't know any alternative. And at the same time, I was trapped in addiction to marijuana, trapped in a relationship that was very codependent and um, trying to get free from bad habits, overeating, pornography. These things were, I knew they weren't good for me, and yet I wasn't able to get free. And I was longing for something more. So when I graduated, I said, I'm going to take a little gap time and figure my life out. So I left this relationship and I started to read a lot of books. Um, a book by Ram Dass, Be Here Now, a book by Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. So these types of books gave me glimpses of what spiritual life would look like. And Ram Dass at the end of Be Here Now recommends a book called Bhagavad Gita. And just at that time, I met a monk on the street in Asheville, North Carolina. And he handed me, brought one with me. It looked just like this was the same type of copy that he handed me and placed it in my hand. And somehow in my heart, I felt this twinge of attraction. And I took the book and I couldn't understand anything when I tried to read the book. And yet I kept it. I recognized it was sacred. And I was finding a lot of insight through psychedelics at the time. I was taking LSD and going out into the forest and just trying to figure out life. And somehow it felt like I was downloading information about about life. And at the same time, I was trying some meditation, but I was not able to control my mind. Meditation was very difficult. So the quick experience of psychedelics was more appealing to me. And so I started to have this desire to go travel abroad. And around that time, multiple people spoke to me about ayahuasca. And I felt a calling to go. I called up a center. I flew down on a one-way ticket. And I'm writing a book about my experiences there. Uh, Hopefully, will come out this year. So, just in brief, I spent a whole year there and spent a lot of time in isolation, living in the jungle, nearly going insane, being alone with my own mind, and uh, mystical visions and things. But the most important aspect of that whole year was becoming more and more convinced of the potency of the Bhagavad Gita because the shaman was teaching from the same Bhagavad Gita. And he was also teaching this practice of kirtan or mantra meditation, especially with the Hare Krishna mantra. So after a full year, nearly losing myself, um, I almost was going to just say, I'll just stay here. I don't know anything better. But then my brother called me up and he said, there's this big Hare Krishna festival up in the States. You should come try it out. And that was my cue. There was another opening, and while there, I met someone who was running a monastery in Florida, and that was 2018. So I said, yeah, I'll come try it out for a month. And then 1 month was now 7 years. Uh, so that's the very brief, I guess I can say, overview. I didn't say anything about my time as a monk, so I can speak on that later if you'd like. That's a little context for how I got here.
Well, I appreciate that very, very much because, as I mentioned at the beginning, making the spiritual path relatable and accessible in that way is very valuable in my view, to hear about some of the struggles, and I appreciate the vulnerability of that process and sharing that so that it may help others. I appreciate that very, very much. And everything that we talk about today is aimed in that direction of how will this help people and it'll benefit. And with that in mind, obviously not everyone listening to this will decide to be a monk, but there are many lessons within that process that I think they can take away regardless. And of course, if they do wish to do so, then it's a great life as well from everything that many monks I speak with tell me. But it is also a big commitment, and I would like to briefly mention at this point. You mentioned about the monastery, 1 month, 2 months. Did you ever realize in that very first phase that you would still be there, or you would still be in that life 7 years on, and of course, beyond this point into the future? But did you ever think, wow, what am I getting into here? Or did it just feel like home in that sense? I would like to briefly discuss that more the inward aspect of your development at that point than the outward.
Yeah,
Thanks, thank you.
sure. Well, it's interesting that after a year of intense shamanic, mystical type of experiences, and there's more detail that I'm not sharing here, but you can see in the book if you'd like, anyone watching this. Uh, I was just experimenting with kind of the dark side, you could say. This teacher said, I'm too attached to being good. So my mother named me Gabriel from birth, and she she very much helped me to develop some sense of goodness. And the shamans, he thought I was too attached to it, so I was exploring the dark side. And then when I came to this monastery, it was so pure, and I was afraid to confront what I had done in my past, where I had let my mind go to the habits that I had, and um, it was confronting. And what I've recognized recently upon reflection is I was avoiding, I was repressing, dealing with the the reality of of my past. I wanted to just say I'm someone new now. Now I'm going to be a saint. But as they say, every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. So I wasn't properly integrating and acknowledging, accepting my past experiences. And pretty quickly in, I actually made a lifetime vow. After 1.5 years of living at the monastery. Um, in our tradition, for one who is serious about following the path, they find a guru and they make a lifetime vow to follow certain principles. Those are to not use intoxicants, to not have sex outside of marriage, to not gamble, and to not eat meat, and then also to do about 2 hours of mantra meditation every day. So they're very serious vows. And I would say that the majority of my thrust in doing that was because, as you said, this feels like home. This feels like what I've always wanted in my life. Like all the threads from my past came together in this practice of bhakti yoga as taught in the Hare Krishna movement. And I was ready to say, yes, there's nothing else I want to do with my life. This makes sense philosophically. The people are wonderful. My teacher is the person who has cared for me more than anyone ever. And yet there was a part of myself that wanted to run away and not acknowledge. So now it's interesting that I'm just meeting you at this time when I'm kind of accepting, yes, I need to go into the shadows of my life. So that's what I can say on this question.
Absolutely. Well, it's a beautiful description in a way, and you are a very eloquent speaker. So as you're telling these stories, I can really envision some of these processes almost like I'm there in a certain way. But the shadows, there's a lot we can learn from them. That much I can say. But also what you were saying there about the vows, yes, I was thinking that when you were saying about LSD, ayahuasca, and these various things. And I was thinking, okay, but in your movement, as I understand it, even tea and coffee um, go out the window. And I was thinking, gosh, that's a big change. So I also think that to give this an authentic view, I would like to briefly touch on any of the challenges you faced in the integration because I know that you mentioned there it just felt like home. I get that feeling from you. And that's a beautiful thing to have found your place and your purpose and to have found what you were looking for when we spoke about the original topic, you know, that you couldn't find the path. But in order to gain the insights, the connection with God, the inner peace, and all of the beautiful things you have in one way, obviously you have to give up a lot from a certain point of view in another way. And I ask this question again to help people because whether people become monks or not, there are definitely some things that a lot of people, myself included, I've had to give up a lot of things also. That's why I'm here in Cyprus and not in the UK any longer, but that's another story. So I do understand. But I would like to go into that process of letting go. I mean, you mentioned earlier about letting go of a relationship prior to that time, before going abroad. You obviously being in the monastery, letting go of the drugs and letting go of those quick experiences in favor of discipline of the mind on a daily basis. As I understand it, I've heard other people in the movement tell me it can be 2 hours of chanting per day to do the correct number, um, and all of these things. But as I've mentioned, were there ever any challenges? You mentioned that little bit of desire to run away, but did you ever have like the cravings to go back to any of the drug use, or did you ever miss relationships with women? And I mean this in the most respectful way, because as I've said already, what you lose on one hand, you gain on another. But I would like to go even deeper into that balance, I guess, is the best way I can think to put this across, if that makes.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And I appreciate your point that it's nice to hear the the bow, the ribbon on top, the nice packaged, story, but we really want to hear the raw reality, the the struggle, because we all struggle, and that's the human side that's very relatable and can give hope that I can I can live an extraordinary life because the most extraordinary people that we look up to, they've put in a lot of work to get to where they are. And I'm feeling comfortable to just be honest and in that light for the aim of helping. So I can say that before I came into the monastery, I was still struggling with marijuana. And then when I came in, I just right away I gave it up, and by the divine protection, I think I've been able to stay free for the past 7 years. But yes, the desire, especially at the beginning, was still there. I would even have dreams of going back and using these things. Um, Fortunately, because I've stayed in environments, I keep my friends and who I spend time with very carefully to not avoid the influence. And even I've been reconnecting with people. Well, one individual who was there with me in Peru working with this shaman. She was very close with him. And after I spoke with her just yesterday, it came up into my consciousness. Ah, what if you went to explore that again? And that type of thought hadn't been in my mind for years. So I thought it was so striking that even after this many years, the desire is still there. It hasn't gone. And I can say that with women, for example, I'm practicing celibacy as a monk, and at the beginning, that was especially very difficult. And the challenge was to not be very cold and uh, heartless in the attempt to avoid the attraction, and yet at the same time to not uh, create an intimacy, yeah, not to go into it. So it was a real struggle, and yes, I considered perhaps moving on from monk life, starting to work, and maybe move into having a family. That was there, and now it's still in my consciousness. I can't say that I'm free from this lust. Uh, that's a strong word. This attraction for for being with someone romantically, it's still there in my consciousness. I think the only difference in myself now is I can see those desires more objectively and choose to not act on them. So I appreciate you asking me these questions because I need to do more reflection on them. I'm trying my best just to be honest, and I I recognize that I still have shallow insights about this.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I think that's obviously we all have improvements to make, but I actually don't mean it from that point of view. I actually very much admire and respect the decision that you've made and the process that has taken you this far with God's help. And actually, my intention for that isn't to probe into your life, it's actually to illustrate the differences. So, in other words, for instance, we're saying about celibacy here. Now, somebody listening to this could still cultivate some degree of greater awareness in that level and move towards more heart-centered connections rather than lustful connections. Um, Easier said than done, but even in the world, these things are possible. So there's very good lessons that you share by these processes, and also with things like the drugs and everything. I mean, that is a very powerful lesson because it's a struggle that people have in every country, in every corner of the world, more in the Western world, but it is everywhere. So, the fact that you're leading by example and the fact that you're sharing in a vulnerable way the continual nature of your self improvement with God's guidance is very valuable as well. The fact that you're not trying to be perfect, you're there saying, "Look, I'm human, but with God's help, I can do a lot better." And as you mentioned with the prayer at the beginning, which was very beautiful, that you are guided to give so much more with his help. So just to be clear, that's why I'm asking. And also, just to give the context of that, Brihat, as well. For instance, I saw a video recently where you posted about social media and you posted about the fact that when you had put up some of the funny videos, even when you were meditating, you were thinking of other ideas, of other videos and things, and you had to bring yourself back to a center point. And I watched that and I thought, wow, that's a really good insight. Even in my own life, I can get caught up in social media, and I thought, wow, that's really good. And so that's part of how I know that you're open to these kinds of questions because it's a continual process of getting closer to God. And my final question about this that is centered on you, but it's still a lesson, is service, is the fact that now you live a life of service to others and now you help and contribute positively to a lot of people um, with God's help, obviously, as we've spoken about. I would like to talk about that process because how do I put this? You mentioned at the beginning of looking at people with a sort of standard career and all of this kind of thing, and not a lot of people in those jobs are able to contribute to the world and to people in the way that you are. So this is what I was saying earlier about, you may lose some things, but you certainly gain a lot of others. How do you feel when you see people improving and becoming better people, getting closer to God, giving up bad habits, any of these kinds of things through the work that you do physically or on social media or in any way that you do it, including the fact that you have this book coming out soon, which I will certainly read. Please let me know when it's
Sure.
but in terms of in terms of the impact that you're having and that God is having through you, how do you feel when you see those differences, those changes within people through your
I
efforts?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question to follow up because it's directly related to what I was talking about. All of the struggle that I dealt with, all of the residual um, contamination of my previous misguided activities. Hmm.
And
I
just
I find that I
okay,
find that it's the happiness of sharing what I have gained with others that allows me to overcome these previous desires. Because these experiences of mystical visions, of romantic pursuits, uh, it was great pleasure, in, immense pleasure. And Krishna describes in the Gita that in order to overcome a lower pleasure, you need a higher one. So the the transformation of lust into love, the sublimation is what I'm experiencing, that I have received so much from my teachers, from God as I pray and chant and read, that I've got a space in my heart I can hold for others. And I'm just blown away by the effect of being happy and just being with someone. It's transformative just to feel close to God and happy in that closeness, and then just to bask in that with someone else. And they become transformed. I don't have to do anything. I just have to feel the joy of being close to Krishna. And the happiness I feel when I see someone transforming is it's the greatest. There's nothing that matches it. And it's the perfection of my existence to know that I can be an instrument for even one other person to feel the hope, the inspiration, the satisfaction of reawakening their relationship with God. So yes, overcoming the difficulties by experiencing the heightened I don't want to use the word bliss I think in spiritual circles we overuse this word uh, bliss, but it's a happiness that's beyond what we usually experience, I can say.
Absolutely. Well, I can feel that by being in your presence, and you'll be interested to know that I pray on each person before contacting anyone to do a podcast. I mean, most of the time you can tell the sincerity of an individual by that aura, if you like, or that presence. Just by being in their presence, you learn something. And I certainly feel that with you. But I also pray just to make sure that I'm making the right decision. And it makes a lot of sense. And that is one of the beauties because you started this off with the lotus flower concept that it must rise from the mud. And of course, that question really illustrates the bloom of that flower now that is happening in your life. Now, as we come into the wisdom aspect, and I'm not just going to say knowledge because you have deeper insights than just knowledge, because it really is wisdom that you've learned as well as knowledge. And you share a lot of it. I mean, I look through your social media and I see your videos coming through quite often. And I think, wow, that's a great insight on this, and that's a great insight on that. I saw one recently about the connection to nature, for example. And I love being in nature. But when I listened to that, I thought, wow, that's a really good insight. That's a really good way of simplifying that concept down to its practical application. And so I'm going to ask you a fairly big question here, which is that in the world today, what would be some of the essential spiritual wisdom that you would like to impart? And I know that before I put you on the spot with this, everything in the Gita, everything in these other books and teachings that I mentioned, there are so many things, and there are many more than we will have time for today. So I'm certainly not trying to put you under pressure. But if you look around at the world today and you think, okay, whether people join your movement or not, this is something that they really need to know, for example, or they need to practice actually and apply more than just know. I would like to open that topic up for your insights because when I look on your social media, I see such a variety of topics that you discuss. And that's why I also prey on questions, by the way. You know, there's one or two things that are in the sort of left brain, if you like. Okay, we need to give people context, we need to do this. But most of the other stuff, I actually just prey on it, and the ideas come. And I said, okay, which topics? I said, just ask him open. I had this feeling of openness, see what comes back. I thought, okay, I'll do that. So here we Um, but yeah, the most important thing that you would like to share as a spiritual lesson would be deeply appreciated, and I look forward to hearing it. Thank you.
Sure. Yes, thank you. The nature of your questions reflects the nature of your character, Liam. I'm very impressed, and I'm immediately reminded of the setting of one of the greatest books of all time, from my humble opinion, is after Bhagavad Gita is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this text is set 5,000 years ago, and there's sages in the forest discussing big questions. And your question is one of those six big questions that they start their whole conversation with. What's the essence of all the world's wisdom, of all the scriptures? What should we really know? And they even gave the same context practically. Um, they say that it's very difficult in this age for us to really figure it all out. We can't go and read all of these ancient texts. Please just make it simple so we can understand. And one of those Sanskrit verses, which the speaker, uh, Sutta Goswami, replies with, he says, Savai pung sam paro dharmo. This means that the paradharma, the highest dharma or um, process of religion for all mankind, all humankind, is yato bhaktir adhokshaje, is that process which awakens our love for God. Whatever faith you are in, if you are awakening love for God, then that's how you know that your process is the highest process, the paradharma. And what is the nature of the religious process that we should be following to awaken that pure love is ahaituki apratihata, which means there's no selfish interests and you don't stop doing it at any time. So no matter what difficulties in life come, you keep on going serving God. We have some difficulties that come and okay, I don't understand this, but let me go on serving you. I have confidence that there is an all-knowing, all-benevolent being looking out for me. And the final line of this verse, he says, Yayatma suprasidati, which means by thus doing, you will feel the supreme satisfaction of the soul. So this is the wisdom that the Hare Krishna movement aims to share with the world is don't worry so much about this religion, that religion. Just focus on serving God selflessly, and you will feel a pleasure that you've never felt before. And let's all come together. Let's unite around the world and not have petty arguments and wars over religious differences. Let's serve God and understand that, like in different countries of Europe, there's different words to describe the sun. In that same way, there are different words to describe God, Allah, Jehovah, Krishna, Christ, and we're all talking about the same person. So to keep it brief, I'll stop there and I can share more if you'd like.
Well, yeah, yes, please. I would like you to share more, but before we continue with that, yes, the fact that we're all talking about the same being, the same person is a very interesting point because I've long suspected that. In actual fact, um, I've been saying that to people because, like you went to Peru, I went through various different traditions and prayed in different churches and mosques and temples and everything. And when I began to sort of break through and feel the presence, I felt it in different places that would technically be different traditions, but I thought, okay, this is the same feeling. Excuse me. And I concluded that it must be about the intention and about the service rather than about the specific details. But that is a fascinating insight of its own accord. But yes, in the time that we have, if you have anything more to share about this, as you mentioned, if you can go further, please do, as it's such a powerful and meaningful topic. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, I'm feeling so enlivened knowing that some people out there uh, hopefully will be struck with the same amazement that I felt when I first heard these ideas. Um, the next thought I'd like to share is that if you are simply sincerely trying your best to connect with God, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, then Krishna describes in the Gita, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. This means that I will give you the intelligence that you need. I will guide you on your path to understand me in higher and higher realizations. So it doesn't make sense that someone in a tribal, isolated situation, if they don't hear about one version of the truth, then they're condemned. No, God is in our heart and he knows our sincerity. I appreciate that word you said, sincerity. That's really the secret of success in spiritual life, is just being sincere, getting free from ulterior motives. Uh, if we approach God in a demanding type of way, you show yourself to me or give me this, then it's like a spoiled child. But when a child becomes mature, they become grateful, thinking, wow, my parents do so much for me. And in that same way, when a human being looks actually at our reality, how much do we take for granted? How much is being provided beyond human means? The seeds that grow the food we eat, the sunlight, the water, the air we breathe, the bodies we inhabit. How does digestion work? How do our brains continue to function? How do we stay alive? We're alive. We woke up today. Let's celebrate. And an intelligent person starts to think, what is the source of all of this? Where does this all come from? And then recognizing that there is a source, a supreme being, then let me do something to reciprocate. Let me not demand things. Let me do something out of gratitude. So, really, gratitude, along with sincerity, is the key for spiritual progress. That let me just try my best. And one more point I'll share to conclude this little monologue is that Krishna says patram pushpam palam toyam in the Gita, that all you have to do, he's saying a fruit, a flower, a leaf, or water, if you just offer it with love, then I will accept it. I will be pleased. He's not demanding anything. He just wants us to give something. Like a little child will um, make some little finger painting, and it's terrible by artistic standards. But they give it to their parents, and their parents are so pleased. And so, actually, it's not very difficult to advance in the spiritual life, to reawaken our relationship with God, if we can just be sincere, grateful, and do some practical reciprocation.
That makes a lot of sense, and it's that's a very profound description. Actually, that fundamentally it's all about the intentions more than the actions themselves. And I love that analogy of the child and finger painting and everything. It makes so much sense. But I've been long fascinated by that process as to why people often um, ask God to do their will rather than often accepting His, in the sense that I've heard it said that sometimes your idea of what your happiness should be is the very thing getting in the way of the happiness you could actually have. And I thought, wow. And, personally in my life, that's been a very true experience. Where when I've got out of my own way and let God flow my life in the right direction, it's gone in a far better direction than anything I could have planned, which is very humbling. And I had to really have a real kick in the teeth from life, as they say, to sort of accept that. But when I did, gosh, it started moving in a totally different direction. But that's a story for another day. Now you have to go, as I understand it, shortly, and I do respect that. So, to conclude our talk today, I have a very brief question for you, very easy to answer. Is if people would like to connect with you personally to learn more about these topics. I know there are many great teachers out there within your movement, but with that being said, certain people will feel the pull, if you like, of saying, okay, I want to connect with Brihat after today. I want to learn more. And I know that you're very open and accessible in that way for relevant and respectful requests, obviously, not just anything, but if it's a purposeful inquiry that people have, I know they can reach out to you. So can you please mention how people can do that? And maybe we can include how they can get your book when it comes out as well. And then we'll wrap this up with that point. But I feel that's relevant to mention.
Sure, yes. That's why I'm on social media, is to make myself available. And the social media username I have is Brihat Dreams. Brihat means big. So it means big dreams, which are the big dreams of those coming before me. I'm trying to be a humble instrument for those big dreams of my teachers, of the dream of the Supreme. And you can message me there. I'll share information about the book on my social media platforms, Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. Um, if you want to email me, bmridanga, BMRDANGA. You can, at gmail.com, you can send me an email there. That's how you can get in touch. And Liam, I hope this is not the last conversation we have. I would eagerly do this again, and I'd love to know more about your story as well. You fascinate me with your thoughtful questions, your attentive listening, your empathetic mood. I'm very impressed and inspired by who you are.
Well, thank you. That means a lot, actually, as who I am has been somewhat of a process to get to this point. So, with God's help, of course. So those kind words mean a great deal, and absolutely, we can talk again. I would be happy to do other talks like this for public consumption if you like, but also to talk personally anytime would also be lovely as well. And we certainly can and will keep in touch. After today, when I release this, I'll send this to you as well. I would be grateful for any reshares, even though I'll promote it my side as extensively as I can. And after that, we can certainly talk some more. It would be a pleasure. It would be an honor. And as I said at the beginning, I'm also very impressed by the way that you are having a positive impact on the lives of so many people. I'm very impressed by your sincerity, hence I use that word, your humility, your kindness. There are so many things, so many virtues that you share and that I'm able to experience just by being in your presence as well. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful talk today. I hope that you have a wonderful and blessed day ahead of you, as you still have most of your day to go, and mine is finishing as it's in the evening here. But yes, I look forward to when God brings us together again. But for now, Hare Krishna to you.
Hare Krishna, Liam. Thank you so much. And I'm wishing all the best for you and for anyone who will watch this.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will put it everywhere that I can, and God will draw the right people to see it at the right time, I believe, for them. So it's a wonderful, wonderful process. Thank you very, very much again, and we will speak soon. Take care.
Looking forward to it, Liam. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.